Okay, here we are. Welcome to day 2 of the 4th grade Bengals math. So we have your exit ticket from yesterday, which was 720 divided by 9. Okay, so I'm going to do my 9 times tables. Nine, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81. Now I'm going to ask myself how many 9s go into 72, which we realize there's 8 of them. 8 goes above the 72. That's going to be key. That's where mistakes are going to happen. Not putting it in the right spot. 8 times 9 equals 72. Subtract. Bring down your 0. Because we need a number for this place value right there. That 1's place value. 9 divided by 0 gives you 0. 0 times 9 equals 0. You subtract, and you have nothing left over and nothing to bring down, giving you 80 as your answer. Or you turn these into 10s, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 90, 180, 270, 360, 450, 540, 630, 720, and 810. And you visually saw that 9 times the 80 gave you that 720, which gave you 80 as your answer. Moving on to today, which we're doing a 4-digit now divided by a 1-digit number. So, how many 6s will go into 3,000? Well, we could count by hundreds if you really want to, okay? Or we'll stick with the first strategy and start off with just looking at the 30. Because 6 can't go into 3, so we're moving to 2 place values. 6 can go into 30. And we find out that when doing our 6 times tables, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, that 6 goes into 30 5 times. That 5 goes above the 0 from the 30. Make sure you put it in the right spot. 5 times 6 equals 30. I subtract. I bring down this 0, the one from the tens place. How many 6s go into 0? 0. 0 times 6 gives you 0. You subtract. You have 0. I have one more 0 from the ones place to bring down. I bring it down. Now 6 goes into 0, 0 times. 0 times 6 equals 0. I subtract. I get nothing left over, and I have nothing to bring down, giving me an answer of 500. If I wanted to turn these into hundreds, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. Then I would turn these in and multiply each of these digits by 100. So 6 times 100 equals 600. 1200, 1800, 2400, 3000. Well, I could say 3000 or 3000, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So 6 times 500 gives me 3000. Moving on to number 2, how many 7s will go into 4,200? Now, some of your parents may be helping you through this and may be saying, well, this is obvious. You just, from yesterday, all we're doing is adding a 0 at the end. Can you add zeros? the correct terminology would be shifting. You would shift the number down or multiply it by 10, because you can't add a 0 to something, because it's just the answer. If you added 0 to 50, you're going to get 50, right? So that's also why it's key to understand the process, okay? Just like reading, right? You don't memorize all words. You understand what each letter stands for, and you send them out, especially in challenging cases. Doesn't work every time, but most of the time it does, which is what we're doing here. We're breaking it down and understanding the process. Okay? So it definitely helps us with more challenging math. 7 goes into 4,200. How many times? Go ahead, pause now and solve that problem. All right, so once again, I'm going to start off. I'm going to ask the silly question, but you'd be surprised how many people get this wrong. How many 7s go into 4? Well, none. So you go to 42. How many 7s go into 42? And you notice when you did your multiplication facts here, it was 6 of them. So the 6 goes above the 2 from 42. 6 times 7 equals 42. Subtract, bring down that 0. 7 goes into 0. 0 times 7 equals 0. You subtract, and you bring down the 0 from the 1's place. 7 goes into 0. 0 times 7 gives you 0. You subtract, and you have nothing left over and nothing to bring down, giving you the answer of 600. Now, if you multiplied these by 100, this would become 600, and this would become 4,200, and you'd notice 7 times 600 equals that 40,200, which is what I have here, 600. All right, number 3. How many 8s go into 3,200? So hit the pause button now and solve. So, how many 8s go into 3,200? Well, I'm going to start off with doing how many 8s go into 3? None. Which is also, I could, if I'm having a hard time with figuring out which place to put my number in up here, I could ask myself that question and say, all right, well, if 8 doesn't go into 3, I could technically put a 0 up there, just to hold the place value. And then move on to 8 goes into 32, and realize it goes in 4 times, and realize the 4 goes right there, above the 2 from 32. 4 times 8 equals 32. I subtract, I bring down the 0 from the 10's place. 8 goes into 0, 0 times. 0 times 8 equals 0. I subtract, I bring down the 0 from the 1's place. 8 goes into 0, 0 times. 0 times 8 equals 0. I subtract, I have nothing left over to bring down. Therefore, it leaves me with the answer of 400. And once again, I could use the strategy of multiplying each of these single digits by 100. If I did that, if I did it, I would have gotten, in this case, 8 times 400 to give me 3,200. If you're multiplying by 100 here, is really what you're doing. You're not just placing or adding. If you're placing 2 zeros here, then you have to place 2 zeros here. Okay, but really what's happening is a shift. And in 5th grade, we're going to talk a lot about shifts. I had one student come up with the idea of creating a shirt that said "Stay calm and shift on" this past year, because we do talk a lot about shifting in math. All right, so number 4. How many 7s go into 5,600? Do your 7 times tables and solve for this division problem. Hit the pause button now. So, when doing my 7 times tables, I noticed that 7 can't go into 5, but it does go into 56. So 7 goes into 56 8 times. 8 times 7 equals 56. I subtract, I bring down that 0. 7 goes into 0 times. 0 times 7 equals 0. I subtract, I bring down the 0 from the ones place. 7 goes into 0 times. 0 times 7 equals 0. I subtract, got nothing left over, nothing to bring down, giving me an answer of 800. And once again, if you decided to turn all of these into hundreds, you would recognize that when you got to 7 times 800, you would get 5,600, which is exactly what we're trying to do, is see how many 7s go into 5,600, which we recognize is 8. All right, so with that being said, I want you to move on to your exit ticket here of 7,200 divided by 9. So thanks for participating today, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.